Well, welcome along to Donington Park, everybody. We're here on the national circuit for the opening round of the 2021 Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000 Championship. It's been a while, really, to get the winter out of the way so we can get back racing. We're doing it behind closed doors here at Donington Park in what are chilly conditions, slightly overcast. There is the possibility of a few sprinkles of rain later on throughout the course of the day, but I don't think they will affect our first race for the Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000 Championship. We'll be heading out onto the circuit very, very soon indeed. We've got plenty of former champions on the grid. We've got reigning champions on the grid as well, and we managed to catch up with one of them earlier on today. We spoke to reigning Duratec champion and now 3 times Duratec champion Michael Gibbons earlier on today.
Yes, yeah, last year went very well. Won the championship, which was 2 years in a row, which was excellent. New car this year, so slight change of colours and stuff, and getting it all dialed in yesterday and Thursday has been interesting. We were hoping to do a bit more testing before then, but COVID and all that. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge, I think, because we're still getting to grips with everything. But I'm looking forward to racing everyone again. It's been a long time, and there's a lot of new people as well. So I don't think it's going to be plain sailing at all. Yeah, Tom Stoughton's back again this year. I'm very much looking forward to carrying on as we left off last year. We seemed to spend most of last year next to each other, having some great racing. I'm looking forward to more of that this year. I think Sports 2000s is brilliant for value for money. Like the speed you go for the money you spend is really good. The paddock is super friendly. Everyone is looking out for each other, and if they can help, they get involved. And in the evenings, where it's allowed, like, people meet up, have a barbecue, have a beer and stuff, and it's all just really friendly atmosphere and really, really good, fast, clean racing.
Yeah, fantastic to hear from Michael Gibbons. Good, fast, clean racing is what it's been doing since 1977 in reality, this particular category. Broken into multiple classes nowadays as well. The cars will be heading out onto circuit very, very shortly, but just to give you a rundown as to the various classes that we'll see. The main class, we were talking to Michael Gibbons, who is the Duratec champion. That means that those cars run the Ford 2-litre 16-valve Duratec engine, which is in its 145 power stroke format. Now, those cars are then split into subcategories. You've got Class A in the Duratec class, which was cars manufactured after 2006 and converted to Pinto specification, converted from Pinto specification after 2012. Group B or Class B is for cars manufactured before 2007 and all cars converted from Pinto spec from 2013. We then have the Pinto class, which is for Pinto engine cars. Those are in Class A and Class B. Class A is for cars manufactured after 1986. Class B is for those manufactured after 1982 but before 86. And then we also have the historic class as well, which is for cars built before 1982. Sounds confusing, but they all provide some great racing. And around this circuit here at Donington Park, lap times, minute and 9.5 seconds, something like that. 1 minute 9.5 seconds, I think, is the Duratec overall lap record set by Patrick Sherrington. The best part of, 8 years ago now, that would be quite some time ago. We've still got a little bit of clearing up just being done. We've just had a race for a GT Cup Championship here, and one of the cars that is just being winched onto the back of the flatbed recovery unit lost a wheel in its earlier race as it went into the gravel trap, so that is just in the process of being carefully moved out of harm's way. And once that car is on the back of the flatbed recovery unit, any further sweeping up will be done, and then we'll start to see the cars released onto the grid for what will be a 25-minute race. And in these conditions, whilst it's chilly and there's the light breeze, the tarmac is dry, so they will all be running on their controlled slick tyres for this particular race. And who are we going to see vying for position? Well, we spoke to Michael Gibbons. He was hoping for great things this weekend as the reigning Duratec champion, but he was outgunned quite literally in qualifying, because it was the two guns of Tom Stoughton, the TS11, and Neil Burrows with his TS12 that occupy the front row of the grid. And the best of the MCRs was Michael Gibbons, who is going to line up third with Dominik Wisniewski fourth at the wheel of a similar NCR Series 2. We'll guide you through the full grid when the cars head out there. But it's just wonderful to see, we've got some new names coming into, as Michael Gibbons alluded to, some new names coming into the Creative Funding Sports 2000 Championship. But we've got some old hands as well in there as well. Former champions, the likes of Tom Stoughton's a former champion, and Neil Burrows and Michael Gibbons. They occupy the front 3 rows on the grid. If we go further down through the order, we've got Nick Johnson returning to the championship for this weekend, driving in the Pinto Historic class this weekend. But he's a 2 times former Duratec champion back in 2004, 2005. He was a Pinto champion back in 01 and 02 as well. Middle part of the grid, we've got the likes of Clive Steeper, who I know has been heavily involved with the promotion of the club as well. In the off-season, Clive has developed with Sue Stockdale the Sports 2000 podcast series and introduced it to a new partner to the podcast series, which is Broadtown Brewery. They're an up-and-coming microbrewery in Wiltshire and deliver nationally if you're interested. You can find them on Facebook, just search Broadtown Brewery, and do have a look at the Sports 2000 podcasts as well. So Clive Steeper, another former champion. He's the reigning historic champion. He claimed that historic category last year. He also claimed it in 2018 and 2015 as well. We've got former Pinto champion in there as well. The likes of number 33 Mike Fry is a former Pinto champion back in 2017. Chris Snowden's a former champion in the historic class back in 2007. He's also the Pinto lap record holder here at Donington Park, and another former Pinto champion will go off the very back of the grid because he had problems in qualifying and didn't set a time. So number 8 David Houghton, who was the Pinto champion back in 2010, is going to start something like 29th on this grid. So there's work to be done for some of the drivers who maybe didn't have it all their own way in qualifying. I know David Houghton did 0 laps, and Andrew Butler only did 1 lap in qualifying, so there were a few cars that had some issues over the course of the qualifying period, and therefore are going to have to work their way through the order as and when we guide you through the grid, which we should be able to guide you through now. The way that the grid will line up is that pole position goes the way of Tom Stoughton, alongside it's Neil Burrows. Row 2 of the grid, we just spoke to him, didn't we? Michael Gibbons and Dominik Lesniewski line up there on row number 2. Row 3 of the grid is James Barwell and Josh Law, with row 4 being Paul Traherne and Giles Billingsley, the former Punto racer. Roger Donnan, the man who does a lot of work behind the scenes nowadays in the Sports 2000 Racing Club, lines up 9th on the grid, and for company he's got local man based just down the road at Leicester, Nick Bates, joining him, with row 6 being John Owen, and for this race at least on the outside of row number 6 is Sebastian Bamsey. Then we move on to row number 7. Mike Turner and Peter Williams, the Welshman, lines up alongside Ashley Law and Ross Hyatt, who are there on row number 8. Row number 9 sees returning multiple champion Nick Johnson line up alongside Trevor Welsh. And row 10, it's Clive Steeper and Mike Fry, both of whom are former champions in their respective categories. Chris Snowden qualified 21st quickest, so he's on the inside of row number 11, with Richard Cook sitting alongside, with Josh Needham and Grant Gibson on row number 12. And then on to row number 13, Keith Mizzen qualified way out of position. I would have thought Keith would be much, much higher up through the order than that. He's got David Gorst for company, with then row number 14 being John Eiley and Andrew Butler. And that gives you the grid, with just the one exception, which is going to be David Houghton, who will slot himself in on his own on that 15th row of the grid. Now, this is one of the sprint races. Most of the Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000 Championships are sprint races. So they have a double header here, 25-minute race coming up shortly. We'll be back live again with their second 25-minute race, which is scheduled to get underway around about 25 past 6 this evening. So we'll be live for that one as well. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Then they will head to Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit there on the 8th and 9th of May for another similar format, a double header, with 2 races taking place on the Grand Prix circuit, both of which are over 25 minutes. But then they have their endurance race, which is a 50-minute race and has a pit stop in it. That will take place at Alton Park for round 5 of the championship. Then they move on to Cadwell Park in Lincolnshire, Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit for the Ford Live triple header meeting that they have down there. And they will also finish the season with another triple header down in Norfolk for rounds 11, 12 and 13 of the championship at Snetterton on the 300 circuit. So there we go, front row of the grid. You can see the blue car with its white flashes is Tom Stoughton, twice a former Duratec champion. Runner-up last year in the championship has got Neil Burrows, the 2010 Duratec champion, for company, sitting alongside at the wheel of his largely white and green machine. The new colours of Michael Gibbons, but proudly carrying the number 1, just very slightly out of shot, almost in the centre of the screen, isn't it? Because he's on the Second row of the grid, there you go. You can just see the different colours for Michael Gibbons this year. The grey and black and blue #1 car at the wheel of his MCR2. He is also a former historic champion. He claimed that championship back in 2014. He's got the largely red and black car of Dominik Lesniewski that sits alongside at the wheel of his similar MCR2, and then row 3 of the grid is the sort of blue and light blue and grey MCR of James Barwell for this race, alongside number 91, which is Josh Law, who finished 3rd in the Duratec Championship last year. It was all rather close as well in the championship, because you shortened season last season. You drop your worst score, so you counted your best 7 of the 8 in the championship. So Michael Gibbons, on dropped scores, secured the Duratec Championship with 90 points. Tom Stoughton was on 82 and Josh Law was on 81, so there was only 9 points separating the top 3 in the Duratec Championship last year. In the Pinto Championship, Peter Needham is the champion. We'll see him out racing, I think, in the second race. He's not in this particular one because it's Josh that's driving the car, Josh Needham. He secured the championship by 14 points in the end. He was on 85 points. Richard Cook was second in Pintos on 71. And in the historic championship, Clive Steeper very much had it all his own way. He did all the rounds. Not everybody else was available for every round. Problems at the tail end of the field, I'm afraid, for John Eiley. His Duratec engine number 44 car is going nowhere. The marshals trying to assist and give the car a bump start, but for the moment does not look as though that car wants to fire into life, and therefore he may well be out of the race before it's even got underway. So cars working their way around the circuit. Standing start for the sprint races. The only rolling starts they have in the Creative Funding Insurance Sports 2000 Championship is when they have their pit stop race. So this will be a standing start, and with plenty of different manufacturers represented on the grid, but it's an all-gun front row of the grid. All MCR row 2 and row 3, a gun and an MCR row 4, and as we head further down through the field, we get through some of the older chassis manufacturers, as sadly the MCR of John Eiley is out of the race, but we've also got the likes of Tiger and Lola and Carbear all represented, and Van Diemen chassis in there as well. And as we say, all of them powered by either a Duratec engine or a Pinto engine. When we say Pinto, that's the 2-litre single overhead camshaft Ford, and they have to run 2 Venturi carburetors on that one. So that's the engine options available to you, the Duratec or the old Pinto engine, the 2-litre Pinto that used to power so many cars from Ford back in period, likes of the Escort Mark 1s and the Mark 2s and the Cortinas and so many different things, and those engines still providing very, very reliable powerhouses nowadays as well. So last bit of weaving being done from side to side just to try and build that last bit of both tyre and brake temperature as well. Tom Stoughton will be well used to this, see whether he might be able to walk away with the first victory of the season, but with Neil Burrows and Michael Gibbons, both of whom are former Duratec champions, lining up alongside him, it's not going to have it all his own way. So we'll have to wait and see. I'd also watch out, I would say, provided he's there, David Houghton off the back of the grid, the number 8 car, could be one to watch if he gets a good start and can work his way past some of the Pinto engine cars nice and early. Then he might have half an opportunity to try and maybe muster his way inside the top 10, possibly even the top 6 at the end of the 25 minutes, but not quite sure why his car stopped so early in qualifying. I think he might have had an off and into the gravel, so that being the case, let's hope it was simply an off and into the gravel, and once they've sorted it out, he's able to take part in the race. So that's the front row of the grid lined up. Tom Stoughton in the blue car, Neil Burrows in the largely green and white car. Row 2 of the grid is the grey and blue and black machine of Michael Gibbons, alongside the largely red and black car of Dominik Lesniewski. And then third row of the grid is James Barwell. His is the blue with the lighter blue flashes to it. Alongside him, he's got the white and green and black and yellow car in the hands of Joshua Law, who finished 3rd in the Duratec Championship last year. So last row of the grid just coming into position now, and the flag will be waved at the tail end of the field. There's a green flag at the tail end of the field, so the revs begin to rise, and for the first time this season, the Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000 Championship here at Donington Park. Lights go out, race gets underway. It's a good start from the outside of the front row of the grid from Neil Burrows. Has he got enough in hand now to dispose Tom Stoughton? The two of them run side by side, in fact 3 wide, as Dominik Lesniewski looks to try and work his way through and past, and has managed to do so, but then runs wide coming out of the corner. So it's Tom Stoughton that is down into, I think, 2nd position, as Neil Burrows Burrows has been able to hang on to the lead of the race. It's Neil Burrows that's taken up the lead of the race. Tom Stoughton is already down into second position. Dominic Nezniewski's there in third place, but he's got Michael Gibbons sniffing around him as they went through the old hairpin for the first time. And as they then work their way out of the old hairpin under Starkey's Bridge and up towards Schwantz Curve, you can see that already Neil Burrows is just starting to sprint away here. Neil Burrows, who didn't do the full season last year, finished 11th in the Duratec Championship standings, looking to try and get his championship season for 2021 off to the best possible start. I think everybody is safely through the first few corners. The Pinto engine cars, the historic engine cars towards the tail end of the field, working their way through. Side by side for third and fourth place as Michael Gibbons came under attack there from Nezniewski, who was looking to try and muster his way through. Nothing doing. Nezniewski has got right behind him the car of Joshua Law, and Joshua Law's coming under attack from Paul Traherne as well. So great little quartet of cars fighting over what is third, fourth, fifth and sixth places, whilst the leading pair just sprint away now. Neil Burrows and Tom Stoughton have already managed to gap the quartet that sits behind, that's still being headed by the reigning Duratec champion, proudly carrying the number 1, Michael Gibbons. Through the old hairpin, starting to work their way back uphill once more through Schwantz Curve and up towards McLean's Corner, with the pair out front already having got the best part of nearly a 2-second gap between themselves and that number 1 car of Michael Gibbons, who can't shake away Dominic Nezniewski, who qualified in 4th place and at the moment is bottled up there in 4th place. Still a gun 1-2. The first of the MCR cars sitting there in 3rd position at the moment, as now the attack for the lead looked as though it was about to shape its way up, but it was just too far back, Tom Stoughton, so couldn't quite get himself up onto terms, and that's problems, I'm afraid to say, for Peter Williams. His car crawling its way around the circuit. He qualified just outside of the top 10, 14th in qualifying, but problems have besieged the Welshman early on out of Redgate Corner. Neil Burrows still just doing enough. Tom Stoughton pushing as hard as he can to see if there's any sort of chink in the armour that he can try and exploit. In 3rd place, Michael Gibbons has now pulled away a little bit from Dominic Nezniewski, so he's almost on his own now, Gibbons, so he can start to begin to focus his efforts, no longer on his mirrors and what he needed to do. He can focus his efforts on the road ahead and try and catch this pair. Fastest lap of the race on the first of the flying laps. It's not a slow one either from Tom Stoughton. In his pursuit of the race leader, at 1 minute 9.7, he's only 2/10 of a second off the lap record here at Donington Park. That's held by a driver that's not out with us this weekend, Patrick Sherrington. Lap record for the Duratec cars is a 1 minute 9.5. So 1 minute 9.7 on the first flying lap is not slow at all, aided by maybe a bit of a slipstream off Neil Burrows, who is the race leader. Is there anything this time through that Tom Stoughton can do? He's looking to try and work his way alongside. Neil Burrows is a little bit defensive this time going in towards Redgate Corner. Tighter line in. Tom Stoughton, might he try and switch back on the exit and get a run coming on towards Hollywood? He's going to try it, but it doesn't work. So he tries the outside for the first part of the Craner Curves, which will give him the inside line for the second part. They are side by side through the Craner Curves, and Tom Stoughton picks up the lead of the race now. So Tom Stoughton, the pole sitter at the wheel of the gun TS11, picks up the lead of the race. The TS12 of Neil Burrows drops down into 2nd position and has already lost a couple of car lengths all of a sudden. Now, Michael Gibbons has now just posted a fastest lap of the race at 1 minute 9.399. That is the new overall lap record for a Duratec car around the Donington Park National Circuit. Michael Gibbons is not done and dusted with that yet. He wants to try and work his way up into 2nd place if he can, because all of a sudden Neil Burrows just seems to have slowed, and also slowing, I'm afraid to say, that is David Houghton's car by the look of things, that stopped right at pit lane entry, so he's waving his hands to forewarn everybody that there's an issue. The marshals should hopefully be able to, in a gap in the traffic, get up and push that car in towards the pit lane and get him out of harm's way. So there's just localised yellow flags at the moment. Lead 3 drivers up towards Redgate Corner. We can still see Josh Law fighting away with Paul Traherne. The black car of Paul Traherne still sitting in 6th position, car number 71. Not quite managed to work his magic as yet. So Josh Law, who finished 3rd in the Duratec standings last year, under pressure from Paul Traherne, wheel of yet another gun. So they tumble their way down through in towards the old hairpin, I'm afraid to say, because of the position of what looked like David Houghton's car. is going to bring about the safety car, I'm afraid to say. Marshall's haven't quite got the gap in the traffic. So dives at the inside of Joshua Law. Now, was that before the safety car boards were displayed? Can't quite tell from that angle. No, it doesn't look as though as yet that part of the circuit there are yellow flags. Can't quite tell. Safety car is out, we do know that. Paul Traherne may have to give the position back. Well, the yellow flag is there, that's for sure. But was the yellow flag out when Paul Traherne overtook? Not for me to worry about. So the safety car will come out and pick up the race leader. So now the safety car accelerates on towards the start-finish line. In the background you can see the stricken car being pushed back down the pit lane, which tends to suggest that if that were the cause for the safety car, the cause has now been cleared, and therefore this could be a very short safety car intervention that's required here. So, safety car will slow everybody down. It does mean that for Tom Stoughton and Neil Burrows and Michael Gibbons, they're all going to be back being nose to tail again, squabbling for the lead. There is David Houghton's car. It has indeed now been pushed out of harm's way. So, been a troubled day really for David Houghton, as they did 0 laps in qualifying, and let's hope it's not the same issue. But it does look rather worrying that it's just going to be one of those days maybe for David Houghton. Let's hope that the 2010 Pinto champion can get the car sorted, ready for the second race that's coming up later on today for the Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000s Championship. So the lights should go out on the safety car, one would have thought, this time through, unless there's something else we're not aware of. But I think we've counted for everybody that's gone missing. We know what happened to John Eiling as his car stopped at the start-finish line before we got the race underway. We saw Peter Williams' car slowing down out on the circuit. Don't know where he stopped, but he stopped a couple of laps earlier, so had that have been in harm's way, that would have been dealt with. And we've now seen David Houghton's car pushed into the pit lane, and those are the 3 cars at the moment that we know have had issues out on track somewhere. So I think on basis we've accounted for them all. Now somebody's looking very smoky there. Is that Keith Mizum possibly? That looked a little bit smoky as it came out. And yes, it was. It was a 24 car. Keith Mizum is not for much longer in this race, I fear, as well. So not quite sure what the problem is with Keith Mizum's car, but you can see it in the background. But the safety car peels its way into the pit lane, and we get the race back underway. So Tom Stoughton holds it, accelerates his way down towards Redgate Corner, but we are 3 wide for second place now as Neil Burrows is under attack from Michael Gibbons, but also Dominic Lesniewski looking to try and squeeze his way up the inside, and he does so. There's a little bit of almost contact between the pair of them. Lesniewski then runs a little bit wide, and Michael Gibbons, who was briefly down to 4th, finds himself coming out of the corner in second place. So it's Michael Gibbons, the reigning Duratec champion, up into second place. Dominic Lesniewski sitting there in 3rd place. 4th now is Josh Law, who's up into 4th place. And I'm afraid to say, bundled down into 5th position now is a man who qualified on the outside of the front row of the grid, which is Neil Burrows. Into the pit lane, not unsurprisingly, did come Keith Mizum, with problems befalling his car. I thought this morning he qualified out of position. I mentioned that at the start of the feed, that he was a little bit lower down than I'd expected, but maybe that is still the same mechanical issue that caused him trouble in qualifying. But it certainly looks very smoky, didn't it, Keith's car? And hopefully they'll be able to sort that out, that it's more of a leak rather than a terminal issue. Now this is Grant Gibson. He is down in 20th position. He's got tucked up right behind him Mike Fry, who is a former Pinto champion. Mike Fry, he's like 2nd in the Pinto class at the moment. So this is going to be 4th position in the race, which is going to be something like 19th and 20th position. They have swapped over since last time they came over the start finish line, because Mike Fry was ahead of Grant Gibson. He's lost out to him over the course of that lap. As for our class leaders, well, leading Duratec A is Tom Stoughton and leading the race overall. Duratec B is being led by the number 41 car in 8th place, which is Giles Billingsley at this stage. Leading Class B for Pintos is car number 28, which is John Owen. He's down in 12th position. Pinto A is being led by the number 69 car, which will be Ross Hyatt. And the historic class, as we almost have a little bit of contact there, Josh Law and Neil Burrows absolutely together, and Paul Traherne's in the mix as well, all busy fighting away, sticking their elbows out for what is going to be at 4th, 5th and 6th position, and now 7th place as well, as trying to get in on the mix as well comes James Barwell at the wheel of number 77 car, dives up the inside of Josh Law, takes the place away. So fantastic battle going on between all of those. I was going to say, yeah, leading the Pinto historic class is Nick Johnson on his return to the championship in 16th position at this stage, but this fight that's occurring for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place. It has been absolutely great value for money at this stage. And no matter where you look, there are battles down through the order. This is Nick Johnson, and he is coming under pressure from the number 69 car of Ross Hyatt that sits behind. They are both fighting away in their respective classes as well, both leading their individual classes. So Pinto Historic class being led by Nick Johnson on his return to the series as Neil Burrows dives inside of Paul Traherne at McLean's corner, squeezes his way through. So that's going to be back up into, what's that, 4th position, isn't it, for Paul Traherne. He is now under attack from the next of the cars behind, which is number 77 car in the hands of James Barwell. Now that car looks, I don't know, but that car looks like Michael Gibbons' car from last year. Being pushed away is Dave Houghton, so he is out of qualifying having done 0 laps, out of the race having only done 2, I'm afraid to say. Peter Snowden, car number 32, long-time Sports 2000 racer, is circulating. We just saw his car there with the number 46 car sitting not that far behind. Trevor Welsh, the 2 red cars. But for Chris Snowden, it's a Tiger. For Trevor Welsh, it's the Lola. And there is Trevor Welsh now, threading his way through Coppice Corner. And who's behind them as well? That's Clive Steeper, isn't it, that's behind them at the wheel of the number 17 car, the Tiger SC80. So on towards the brakes, towards the conclusion of yet another lap. David Gord's at the wheel of his MCR, turning his way through the old hairpin. He's the last of the runners at the moment, down in 25th position for those cars that are still circulating. And this is another good little fight as well. We've got here at the front of the queue is Nick Bates by the look of things. Yeah, it's Nick Bates, then Roger Donnan, then the number 42 car, which is going to be Sebastian Bamsey for this particular race. And Sebastian Bamsey has got John Owen not too far behind as well. So this is a great little fight that's going on, as Nick Bates having to defend there. So that's 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th places altogether. New fastest lap of the race for Michael Gibbons last time through, it's 8.39. So that is now over a second quicker than the previous Duratec lap record. 1 minute 9.5 was Patrick Sharrington's lap record. Well, that has been shattered by Michael Gibbons in this race. 1 minute 8.930 for him. So Michael Gibbons on a charge, and at the moment closing in on the race leader. So it's worth just maybe keeping an eye on exactly what's going on. Oh, well, I say that, and as soon as I say it, that's the commentator's curse. Michael Gibbons through the gravel trap on the exit of McLean's corner and has rotated the car through 180 degrees. The reigning Duratec champion only saw the end of it, didn't see the start of it. Ah, right, but also involved in something that looks like Chris Snowden's car. So that is Chris Snowden and Michael Gibbons, who look potentially to have come together there. And Chris Snowden's car looks rather stranded towards the edge of the circuit. Michael Gibbons through the gravel, and no doubt with damage. That is going to mean, I'm afraid to say, another safety car period will be required. So the safety car is on standby. Problems there, and retirements also for Mike Fry, I'm afraid to say, that is. So hand aloft, the Tiger SC79, a car that harks back to the very early days of Sports 2000 racing. It started in 1977, that's a 1979 chassis that Mike's racing, and I'm afraid to say that Mike Fry is out of the race. Mike, the driver who I mentioned earlier on in the off-season, developed with Sue Stockdale the Sports 2000 podcast, and thanks to the support of Broadtown Brewery as well for getting involved in that. So search Facebook for Broadtown Brewery, and you can order online as well from them. So unfortunately that is Clive Steeper out of the Mike Fry out of the race. Clive Steeper that's been involved in putting the podcast together. So there's, you can see Michael Gibbons' car to the very right of the screen there. You won't see Chris Snowden's because it's in the dip that exists between McLean's corner and Coppice. So it's going to take a while just to recover those two cars that we had. Osborne, the safety car. Let's just guide you through the order at this stage. So there's a safety car, number 26, which is Tom Stoughton, leads the race. Second place is the car that's third in the queue. It's the red and black car, which is Dominic Wisniewski, that's there running in second place in the race. Third is number 35, which is Neil Burrows. Fourth is 71, which is Paul Traherne. Fifth is 77, James Barwell. And sixth, number 91, which is Joshua Law. Seventh place, all of those are in Class A, the top six, by the way, so Duratec A. In seventh place is the leading car from Duratec B, so that's a class leader, number 41, which is Giles Billingsley. In 8th place is number 4, local man Nick Bates. 9th place is 34, which is Roger Donnan. And in 10th place, that's another class leader. That is the number 28 car. That is John Owen. That's there in 8th place. He leads Class B at this stage. Other class leaders that we've got down in 15th position, car number 96, which is Nick Johnson, multiple champion, leads the Pinto Historic class. And we've also still got number 69 leading its class as well, which is Ross Hyatt, who leads the Pinto class. So they give your class leaders at this stage. 9 minutes of the race to go. Safety car out for the second time. The first one was very brief because of David Houghton's issue, trying to get into pit lane entry where the car didn't quite make it. There's a bit of sweeping up and bodywork that sits on the edge of the circuit there. Where's Chris Snowden's car? It's gone, right, so, oh no, it's still there. So, it looks as though it's down on the right-hand rear, doesn't it? So, maybe a little bit of contact as Michael Gibbons was trying to lap Chris Snowden. There was obviously a disagreement as to which piece of tarmac each was expecting the other to be on at the time. Trundling his way also down the pit lane. We just briefly saw there David Gorst. So David Gorst, the car that's headed into retirement, I'm afraid to say. So that's Mike Fry, Chris Snowden, Michael Gibbons, Keith Mizzen, David Houghton, Peter Williams and John Eiley, all of whom have had various problems befall them in this race, but still 22 cars out there and circulating, or 21 now that we've had into the pit lane. David Gorst. And one thing it does do is it bottles everybody back up again. We've seen just how fantastic the battles have been through the orders, with certainly even at the sharp end as well, with Dominic Wisniewski and Neil Burrows, Paul Traherne, James Barwell, Josh Law, all busy squabbling away. There's the stricken car of Chris Snowden being lifted out of harm's way. That will be positioned back up as close as they can to the barriers on it. Heading back down pit lane though. So back into the race is going to be David Gorst. It was the lap. Just being held at pit lane exit until the whole field of cars has gone through. But black and orange MCR should be able to rejoin the race very shortly. So most of the drivers still weaving from side to side so as to try and maintain that tyre and brake temperature. Remember, we'll be back for another race here at Donington Park for the Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000 Championship later on today as well. So another 25-minute race to cap off their racing weekend. That is scheduled to get underway with the red lights going out and the race starting at 18:25. So the stream will go live probably about 5 minutes before that. So maybe just keep checking social media and checking wherever website you've come through to watch this footage. So about 18:20 might be worth just double checking to see if we have run through the programme effectively this afternoon with all of the other races that we've got going on at Donington Park. If we can start that race earlier, we will be doing, absolutely. But the flip side of that is that if there are a few delays, the race might start a little bit later and the stream might not go live until after that time. So keep looking in, stay in touch with us. There is Michael Gibbons' car now. What are they going to do with that? They're just going to leave that where it is. It's a long way through the gravel, so they might opt just to leave that one where it is, or possibly just push the car back up against the barriers. The marshals, providing that is, of course, that there's no suspension damage to it and it can freewheel into that position. So lights are still on the safety car. Lights go out on the safety car. Right, so we're going to go racing this time through. Michael Gibbons' car is not going to be repositioned. They've got Chris Snowden's into a safe place. Fantastic work by the marshals and the recovery crews. So it's now up to Tom Stoughton as to when he wants to get his foot down and propel the gun over the start-finish line and get racing back underway. Remember, no overtaking until you reach the start-finish line, but it's been a really good restart from Tom Stoughton because there was a back marker between himself, that was Andrew Butler's car, and Dominic Wisniewski, so there's nothing Dominic Wisniewski could do. He had to wait until the start-finish line before he could overtake, so that's really aided Tom Stoughton and to put Wisniewski under pressure from Neil Burrows for second position. Look at the gap, and that was all to do with that back marker being there as the second car in the queue, and Dominic Wisniewski just knew that it might be the green flag's waving, but until we get to the start-finish line, I can't overtake the back marker, which means that Tom Stoughton just had that opportunity to break away very, very slightly, and he's already starting to disappear up the distance for the scrap that's brewing over second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth position once more. So James Barwell back under pressure from Josh Law Those two cars are so evenly matched for pace throughout the course of this race. Damages there just in the rear bodywork of Neil Burrows' car. They just seem to be bouncing around very slightly, didn't it, the fiberglass? Maybe just a hairline crack in it, and just causing it to flex that little bit more. Won't worry him because he's going to be pushing as hard as it can. Black car with its yellow flashes is Paul Traherne. He sits there in 4th place. That's Josh Law, number 91. With a little bit of a flick midway through the Roberts chicane, accelerating his way down the start-finish line. And not that far behind them. Watch out for the Duratec B-Class leader. That's the white car with its gold and its black flashes to it, which is Giles Billingsley. So he has managed to catch up with them as a result of that safety car period, and he's not sitting that far behind. He's in 7th place. So it's sort of 2nd through to 7th that are in this train of cars. 6 cars heading down in towards the braking area for the old hairpin. Travelling their way through the right-hander. Goes all of the curve, but no more goes James Barwell in his efforts to try and close up against Paul Traherne, the car that lies ahead. Neil Burrows in 3rd place. We'll see whether he'll move a step higher up on the podium. Less than 3.5 minutes to go. Up towards Coppice Corner. This is for the 6th time of asking. As we heard from Michael Gibbons at the start of the programme, value for money in Creative Funding Sports 2000 racing. Such powerful cars, the lap times that they do because of the aerodynamics that they've got as well. It really is good value for money. It's a very friendly paddock as well, and it's a great introduction into racing. That's why we see so many drivers drive in Sports 2000 and stay in it. But this year we've got some new ones as well. Paul Traherne trying all the way around the outside of Neil Burrows. He had a better exit coming out of Roberts. Neil Burrows defends, but now he's going to lose out on the switchback as they head on towards the top of Hollywood. So Paul Traherne picks up the final podium spot. Neil Burrows drops down now into 4th position and is instantly coming under pressure from James Barwell's car that sits behind. That's the blue car with its lighter blue flashes. What can James Barwell do? Nothing down at the old hairpin is the answer. Neil Burrows try and sort of stem the flow and make sure that he hangs on to 4th or even go one better and get back past Paul Traherne. We'll have to wait and see, but for the moment it's another gun that has moved itself back ahead of an MCR. Guns seem to be suited to the circuit today here at Donington Park, because at the moment Tom Stoughton leads in his gun. 2nd is Dominic Lesniewski at the wheel of the MCR. 3rd is the number 35 car of Neil Burrows, and that's an off, I'm afraid, for Giles Billingsley. That's at the exit of McLean's Corner, where the Duratec B leader had the off, and depending on how quickly he could recover that, about 7 seconds behind him was number 34 Roger Donnan. That might have lost him the place, might have lost him the lead of the class. We'll have to pick up on that at the end of the lap. So Lesniewski, Paul Traherne, Neil Burrows, James Barwell, Josh Law, all still together. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th places, flicking their way onto the top of Hollywood and down through the crane of curves with just 1.5 minutes to go. So next time through, Tom Stoughton will be on to his final lap of this first race of the season for the Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000 Championship. And well, certainly the podium isn't decided yet. The top 6 without question is not decided as yet. And just for confirmation, that spin, I'm afraid to say, for Giles Billingsley did mean that he lost the lead of the Duratec B class, because Roger Donnan now, the number 34 car, moves up into 8th position. Giles Billingsley lost 6 places and drops to 3rd in the class and 13th overall with that spin. Good fight still going on as well. Roger Donnan there is the Duratec B leader. He's still bottled up behind Nick Bates at the moment, so it's Class A cars for the Duratec category occupying the top 7 places. Roger Donnan, the number 34 car, is the first of those that runs in Class B for the Duratec cars, so those are cars manufactured slightly earlier. Down and towards the braking area for the Roberts chicane, bouncing over the curbs. Roger Donnan still under pressure though as well. He can't rest on his laurels, can he, because he's still got cars sitting behind him, which is John Owen not too far behind. But for the leaders, they're down through the crane of curves and in towards the braking area for the old hairpin for the final time. And this is the fight for 2nd and 3rd position. Dominic Lesniewski under pressure from the car that sits not too far behind him, Paul Traherne, but Paul Traherne has got his mirrors pretty full now of Neil Burrows, who seems to be coming back all of a sudden to try and muster something, and I think just ran a little bit wide there, Paul Traherne, and that's all Neil Burrows needs surely to try and grab the position away. There goes Dominic Lesniewski. It is position gained. In fact, it's 2 places lost for Paul Traherne, because also James Barwell squeezed his way through but then lost it mid-corner at Coppice. Up towards the checkered flag will come Tom Stoughton, but we have had a bit of a sort out for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th places. on that final lap. Tom Stoughton will claim the win in the opening round of the Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000 Championship here at Donington Park on the national circuit. Dominik Lesniewski finishes in second place. It is going to be Neil Burrows that comes through to finish in third place, Paul Traherne in fourth, and Joshua Law in fifth position. In the end, sixth place. Is it going to be? It will be the recovering car, I think, that will finish in sixth place of James Barwell. Seventh place will go the way of Nick Bates, and Roger Donnan will be the first of the non-Class A cars home, finishing in eighth place overall, the car number 34. So he claims his class, finishing in eighth place. Ninth place will go the way of the number 28 car, which is John Owen. Completing the top 10 is number 42, which is Sebastian Bamsey. Other class winners, well, we will have Tom Stoughton claiming the win overall in his class. Roger Donnan will be a class winner of Duratec B. In Pinto B, it's the number 28 car of John Owen that will be the winner of Pinto B. Nick Johnson, former champion returning, will pick up the historic class win. And I think almost the last of the cars to take the checkered flag will be the Pinto A class winner, which will be the number 69 car of Ross Hyatt. So that is a win for Tom Stoughton. We heard at the top of the programme Michael Gibbons was looking forward to picking up where they'd left off, himself and Tom Stoughton, in the battle for the championship. Well, whilst it's a win for Tom Stoughton in the opening round, it was a retirement for our reigning Duratec champion Michael Gibbons, but that is just the first of 13 rounds of the 2021 season. And there'll be plenty more opportunity for them to lock horns, not least of which will be later on this afternoon, where we'll be streaming live once more, whether it be via the Sports 2000 Facebook page or race.tv. Thank you for joining us. So cars working their way in towards the pit lane. The drivers then will head in towards the Parc Ferme area, where the cars will all be checked that they comply with the technical regulations of the championship, and then once the quick checks and balances have been done, including just making sure they are running to the correct minimum weights and everything, you see what that means to Tom Stoughton. He is as pleased as punch with that one, delighted with his race win. All went perfectly to plan from him, not necessarily all the way, because he lost the lead at the start and had to work his way back into contention, but pleased as punch with that one. So in towards Parc Ferme they will go, and we should now hopefully be able to guide you through the results. Tom Stoughton claimed the win by 4.8 seconds in the end from Dominik Lesniewski in second place, and Neil Burrows was third. Paul Traherne, Josh Law and James Barwell were fourth, fifth and sixth, with Nick Bates in seventh place, and Roger Donnan claiming his class as he came home in eighth place. John Owen was ninth, and Sebastian Bamsey completed the top 10. After Sebastian Bamsey in 10th place, Mike Turner was 11th. Despite the spin, Giles Billingsley finished in 12th in the end, with Ashley Law, Richard Cook and Grant Gibson wrapping up the top 15. Nick Johnson claimed top honours in the Pinto Historic class as he finished in 17th place, with Trevor Welsh, Clive Steeper, Ross Hyatt and Andrew Butler, who was a lap down, completing the top 20. After that, it was Josh Needham in 21st place, David Gorst in 22nd, and then from then on in, Michael Gibbons, Mike Fry, Chris Snowden, Keith Midden, David Houghton, Peter Williams and John Eiley, they all had problems from 23rd places backwards. So Tom Stoughton claims the first win of the season in the Creative Funding Solutions Sports 2000 Championship. Who's going to claim the second win of the season? Because we've got that race coming up later on today at around about 18:25. You can watch it live. So thanks for joining us for this first race of the season. But from everybody at Donington Park, we'll catch you later on today. Goodbye.